get things started, can you tell me a little bit about your background in Fox and the scale of Fox, how data and ML platforms are used as well?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've been at Fox for about 3 years. I'm the head of data and commercial technology, and so I lead all of the platform systems that allow us to take data in, to synthesize it, to do analysis on it, and also to activate it. And so that's a platform of about 300 million monthly users, and so we're taking in petabytes of data every month across our audience systems and commercial systems. And so it's a big footprint, and our biggest trick, like any media company, is taking that and actually activating on it in real time and making sure that we reach audiences and change experiences based on that. And so it's a fairly new system. A lot of that thinking is pretty new to the media world, even though it's been around for a while now. And so a lot of my job is to bring that thinking to our businesses and to our editors and to our production teams. And
awesome.
So it's really exciting. It's fun to sit in between those two.
That's awesome. So 300 million users on a monthly basis is a lot of actually customer scale. And how do you actually scale your data infrastructure, and what do you do with this data and to leverage ML to create like differentiated experiences? Can you give some examples to kind of connect the dots for us?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have pipelines that bring that data in, and obviously, like anyone, the integrity of those pipelines and how much and the types of data we capture are really important. Yeah. So one of our big initiatives over the last couple of years has been to standardize those pipelines, those ingestion frameworks across our business. And so that would be everything from our behavioral data and making sure that we're reporting behavioral data across all of our business units, that Tubi's using the same structure for data ingestion as Fox Sports is, or one of our other properties. So that's then the first piece. The second piece is then taking and synthesizing and getting a signal from that data. And at a baseline, what a company like ours is really interested in as a portfolio is as having a single audience across that. And so being able to view a person as once across, but even as challenging is the problem of viewing content as one piece of content across a lot of syndication, across a lot of formats. And so there's a lot of data architecture that goes into that and thinking about that. So we've done some of the work to get there, but we're still, the biggest firefight that I have is constantly going to the 130 or 140 applications that we have and making sure, hey, we're reporting content the same way. The IDs are similar. There's some sort of lineage to IDs for content and lineage to IDs for users across. And probably similar to what you faced at Amazon. It's a challenge to make sure that this architecture actually allows you to do that analysis once.
It's like also building like a unified customer profile and so forth, and entity linking. Those kind of challenges are also plenty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's a very philosophical kind of abstract problem to think, okay, how do I create knowledge about a user that is as extensive as it can be, but also respects user experience, so that someone on Tubi really understands that Tubi is where they are, right, and not Fox Sports or Fox News. And so how do we create an experience that makes sense to users, also capitalizes on the fact that we know you across all of these areas, is saleable and commercializable, but also follows the expectations of a user and also the requirements, the privacy requirements we have. So there's a lot to it from just a data architecture standpoint.
That leads right into what was about us. Generative AI is all the buzz nowadays because with all the transformative capabilities it can do, especially like creating stories, images, or videos, and so forth. Now, how is Fox actually leveraging generative AI, especially with some of the data investment they have made?
Yeah. It's obviously very early. I mean, it's an interesting thing as a technologist. You get really excited about speed to development, right? What's interesting is that our business units, especially, are constantly asking us. So, Fox Weather is a good example. So we have weather correspondents around the country who are really interested in being able to quickly create content around events and moments that happen during weather events. The problem is that, first of all, there's a huge amount of context to a weather event. So a town in Florida may not have been hit by a hurricane for the last 15 years. There's a body of content about that last hurricane that's actually valuable context for this one. So first surfacing that context and understanding it, or understanding some of the advanced meteorological context, all of that's important. And then being able to produce content that's relevant there around that event. So you're not just regurgitating some weather statistics, but you're actually creating a story that has all of that context. That's one of our first focuses.
Yeah, and with things like generative AI, how do you actually, you rightfully called out this technology is so new. I mean, they have kind of took off in the past 12 months. But how do you ensure your teams are actually up to speed and actually knowing how to use these technologies? Can you share some of the things you have built with the AWS and Bedrock and others, and how did you get your teams up to speed?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think, as you know, hiring people who are inquisitive and curious is always the step. And there is a cultural aspect to this that's extremely important. And so bringing in people who are going to ask those questions and who are won't really sleep until they stop thinking about this is, the first thing was to make sure that everyone has access to those tools, even in a very raw state. And then to allow them to try them out. But then also, we have folks on our team who are experts in the industries that they come from. So experts in sports or experts in weather. And combining those two things is really important. So we built, one of the products I talked about was Foresight. Foresight is a product that we built for sportscasters. And it allows us to take in both real-time sports data as well as content data and understand that and dig into it. Having that foundation, we're already doing that even before we started looking at LLMs and GANs. But now taking what we have, which is a platform for that, having curious people say, wow, could we generate on-screen graphics in real time using GANs? Could we train GANs to think about how to change graphics on screen? Or could we train LLMs to come up with new language to put at the base of a sports clip, right? Those things, that combination of curiosity and these tools that we already have is really what I think it comes down to. And so things like Foresight are definitely the first products that we're doing this with. But we've opened it up. The media is neat, and my whole career in media, what I've seen is that editors, the thing they dream of is being able to more holistically cover a moment in time. And so if you can give them that Iron Man suit, right, empower them to, with these superpowers to do that in your content management systems, in your digital asset management systems, they'll use it. They jump on that stuff.
That's a great analogy to kind of give like an Iron Man suit to your editors and so forth, which is essentially how we look at generative AI, because it makes all the builders like 10x more productive and creators 10x more productive. So it's fascinating to see that. There are lots of folks who have been working on big data systems and database systems, and they're all asking, for instance, what does Gen AI mean for me?
Yeah, well, I think that, first of all, I think that's the most important thing to remind people of, first of all, is that when you create a technology like generative AI, it's not a technology that displaces jobs. And maybe in the very short term it does, or displaces effort. It actually, in every previous case throughout humanity, it's lifted humanity up to the next level. And so the folks who were constantly thinking about how do I write the next blog post, or how do I make sure to build the next video clip, now can think more strategically about what is the concept, what am I trying to do here? And so, both on the creative side with our editors, with our producers, and then also on the engineering and product side, what I try to remind people of is, hey, short term, this will change things, and we expect it to, and we want it to. But longer term, what it will help you is if you think about this in terms of how does it lift you? How do you now create 1,000 clips in a concept instead of just writing one? And I think there is a little bit of resistance, but there's always resistance to this, this type of technological change.
You have played with a lot of our AWS tools, and what are some of the things that you really, services that you enjoyed? What are some of the best practices you would recommend or learn the hard way, so that people who watch this will say, okay, I wish actually now that I know, I'm very excited to go try it?
Yeah. I think the connection between your ML libraries and now Bedrock and Titan and services like Lambda is extremely important, because for having managed large engineering teams for a long time, you have a gradient of expertise. And in order to apply a lot of these things, it shouldn't be that you have to become a true ML engineer to apply them. And I think that, I think what generative AI allows you to do now, at least in the way that it's been conceptualized by a lot of the other players in the market, is that it's lowered the bar for adoption. I really applaud you for doing that, as well as making it open so that we can bring other models.
That's great.
I think the Llama models now are some amazingly powerful models. And so to be able to use those from the same place that we use other major models like Titan, I think is really important. And so we're constantly looking at different models and testing them against each other. And we expect the future to be pretty diverse in terms of which things we use for what purpose.
What would you recommend for any executive or person running a tech team in any industry on getting started in this data and ML space? What are some of the top advice you'd give that went well for you and did go well?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think people need time to play with and digest this. So we've done some hack days and some hackathons. That's a little bit of a colloquialism now, and but I think it's with technology that moves this fast, you have to clear time for people to understand it and move with it. And so you shouldn't expect the first thing that you build with generative AI to somehow change your company. It's going to take building a bunch of prototypes and testing things out and finding those niches. So we've built a lot. I have a whole team whose job is just to I wouldn't even call it innovate, but to sort of fail at these things over and over again and try and experiment. I think that's really important, and it's important to encourage that across your whole organization.
That's awesome. Fail fast, experiment, and iterate. Totally makes sense. In terms of generative AI experiences and so forth, are you seeing within Fox 1D like some areas where you're able to see more adoption, or how are you prioritizing where to actually invest in these?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think is interesting about generative AI. I think that people, like with a lot of technology, just go straight to the superficial applications of it. So that would be in generative AI, it's content creation. I can create content. Usually for a company that's building content professionally, creating content just to replace the core asset doesn't help, right? So the interesting parts, the things that you have to pay attention to are actually around the edges, right? And they might be, like I said, shoulder content that helps augment your experience, but more likely they're things that no one's even thinking about. So we're looking at our archive department and saying, okay, for archival content, how could we make a more efficient search for archives? We have 70 years of content. It's really hard to describe. If you look back 50 years, even to describe in terms that you understand today, something like a poodle skirt or something, or get the content you need is very hard. So like generative AI allows you to do things like that in a way you couldn't before. So
that is actually fascinating, where you're saying it's not just about actually use generative AI for the hard to solve problems around the core areas, which are the team doesn't have the bandwidth, so that you augment the productivity in a big, meaningful way. Totally makes sense. Sounds like you have a lot cooking across using many of our technologies to build some highly differentiated experiences. Again, thanks again for the partnership.
Yeah, likewise. We've really enjoyed the partnership with you and a lot of the technologies that you bring.
Yeah.